I sat at the head of my own dining table like a stranger in my own home. The roast beef I'd spent 3 hours preparing sat untouched in front of me while my wife Patricia and her 2 daughters, Vanessa and Brooke, laughed at something on Vanessa's phone. They didn't even glance my way. "Dad made pot roast again," Brooke said, rolling her eyes. The word dad came out flat, almost mocking. I'd been in her life since she was 9. She was 23 now. "At least he's consistent," Patricia added, not looking up from her own phone. "Consistent at showing up and, well, showing up." They all laughed. Vanessa, the older one, at 26, finally looked at me. "What do you actually do around here, Gerald? Like, seriously. Mom pays the mortgage, I handle the utilities. Brooke covers groceries half the time. You just exist." I set down my fork carefully. My hands were steady. After 38 years as a civil engineer, after building infrastructure across 3 provinces, after raising 2 stepdaughters who weren't my blood but who I'd loved anyway, my hands were steady. "I beg your pardon?" I said quietly. "Oh, come on. Don't act wounded," Patricia said, finally putting her phone face down. "Vanessa has a point. Ever since you retired 4 years ago, what exactly is your contribution here? You putter around the house, you make dinners nobody asks for, you watch your documentaries. That's not partnership, Gerald. That's occupancy." The words hit me like cold water. Not shocking, just clarifying. "We're not trying to be mean," Brooke added, though her smirk said otherwise. "It's just facts. Mom's been carrying this household financially. We all have expenses. You're just sort of here." I looked at each of them in turn. Patricia, who I'd married 8 years ago when she was going through her divorce. Vanessa and Brooke, who I'd driven to university visits, who I'd helped with resume writing, who I'd listened to cry about breakups at 2 in the morning. "I see," I said. "You're right. I should contribute more clearly." Patricia looked surprised, like she'd expected me to argue. "Well, good. I'm glad we can finally have an honest conversation about this." "Absolutely," I said. "In fact, I'll start making changes tonight." I stood up from the table, picked up my plate, walked it to the kitchen. Behind me, I heard them return to their phones, already forgetting the conversation, already dismissing me. I didn't say another word that evening. I went to my study, the small room in the basement that Patricia always called my man cave, with that particular tone that made it sound like a pity prize. I opened my laptop, started making lists. I'm 63 years old. I've learned that when people show you who they are, you should believe them, and when they tell you explicitly that you contribute nothing, perhaps it's time to show them exactly what nothing looks like. The joint account. I'd set it up 6 years ago at Patricia's request. "It's easier," she'd said, "for household expenses." What she'd meant was easier for her to access my retirement pension, my savings, my investment dividends. I pulled up the banking app, reviewed the statements from the past year. Patricia's mortgage payment. I'd been covering 60% of it since she'd refinanced 2 years ago. The car insurance for all 3 of their vehicles. The property tax. The home insurance. The water and heating bills that Vanessa claimed she handled. The internet and cable bundle. The family cell phone plan. The home maintenance fund. The monthly transfer I made to cover groceries and household items that somehow never seemed to decrease no matter who was supposedly buying what. $73,000. That's what I'd contributed to this household in the past 12 months alone, not including the gifts, not including the emergency car repair for Brooke's Honda, not including the down payment help I'd given Vanessa for her condo that she'd promised to pay back but never mentioned again. I opened a new tab, searched for 1-bedroom apartments in Calgary. I'd built half the bridges in this city. Surely I could find somewhere to live that didn't require me to justify my existence over pot roast. The next morning, I woke at 6 like always. Made coffee. Patricia came down at 7:30, already on her phone. "Morning," she said absently. "Good morning," I replied. "I've been thinking about what you all said last night." She glanced up. "Oh, you're right. I need to be clearer about my contributions, so I'm going to make some changes to simplify things." "That's mature of you, Gerald." She poured her coffee, added the expensive oat milk I bought because she claimed dairy made her bloated. "What kind of changes?" "Financial ones, mainly. I'm going to consolidate my accounts, make everything cleaner, less complicated for everyone." "Oh." She seemed pleased. Well, that sounds sensible. I always said you should be more organized about money. I nodded, sipped my coffee. Didn't mention that I had a meeting with my bank manager at 9:30. At the bank, Maureen had been my account manager for 12 years. She was a straightforward woman in her 50s who didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Gerald," she said, reviewing the papers I'd brought, "this is quite a shift. You're sure about this?" "Completely sure. Removing Patricia from all accounts. Stopping all automatic transfers. Opening new accounts at a different institution." She looked at me over her reading glasses. "Should I be concerned?" "You should be doing your job," I said, not unkindly, "which is to execute my instructions regarding my money." She nodded slowly. "Fair enough. This will take about 48 hours to process completely. The automatic payments will stop immediately, though, and she'll be notified by mail about being removed from the joint account." "That's fine. What about the mortgage payments?" "You've been paying into her account for that. After today, that's not my concern." Maureen was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled slightly. "My daughter went through something similar, except she was the one who got taken for granted." "Good for you, Gerald. It takes courage to advocate for yourself at any age." By the time I got home, it was nearly lunch. Patricia's car was gone. The girls didn't live here anymore, though they treated the house like their personal restaurant and laundry service. I went to the basement, to my man cave. I'd been collecting tools for 40 years. Not just the basic homeowner set, but professional equipment. Table saw, drill press, complete carpentry setup, plumbing tools, electrical testing equipment. Everything I'd used to maintain this house, to build the deck, to finish the basement, to renovate the kitchen 2 years ago when Patricia decided she needed European styling. I started packing. Called my colleague Martin, whose son owned a storage facility. "Gerald, long time. What can I do for you?" "I need a unit. Climate controlled. This week." "How big?" "Big enough for a full workshop." There was a pause. "Everything okay, friend?" "Everything's changing. In a good way. I'll have something ready for you tomorrow." I spent the afternoon methodically photographing every tool, every piece of equipment, serial numbers, purchase receipts where I had them. I'd bought all of it. They were mine. But I documented everything anyway because I'd learned in my engineering career that documentation was protection. Patricia came home around 5. I was in the kitchen, making myself a sandwich. "You're eating already?" she said. "I thought we were going to have that leftover Chinese." "Feel free," I said. "I'm having this." She frowned slightly. "Is something wrong?" "Not at all. Just making different choices, like I said." She shrugged, already scrolling her phone again. "Suit yourself." That evening, Vanessa came by with her laundry. She had a stackable washer and dryer in her condo, but she preferred to use ours because the machines are better. Really, it was because she didn't want to pay for her own detergent. I watched her haul 2 large bags down to the basement laundry room. Watched her start the first load. She came back upstairs, grabbed a soda from the fridge without asking, flopped on the couch. "Mom, did you see that video I sent you about the Cabo trip? Brooke and I are thinking March." "Sounds amazing," Patricia said from the kitchen, where she was reheating Chinese food in the microwave I'd bought 3 years ago when the old one died. "You should go. I'm checking flights now. Probably like 800 each. But worth it." I said nothing, just sat in my armchair with my book. The book about the history of Canadian infrastructure that Vanessa had once called incredibly boring. No offense. No offense. That phrase had become a shield they hid behind. "You're kind of useless. No offense. Nobody cares about your stories. No offense. Maybe you should just stay home. No offense." The next day, I rented a truck. Martin's son met me at the storage unit with the keys. "This one's good," he said, showing me a unit on the 2nd floor. "Insulated, climate-controlled, security cameras on this corridor. Perfect." It took me 6 hours to move everything. My tools, my equipment, my filing cabinets with 40 years of project documentation, my books from the study, my model bridge collection that Patricia called dust collectors, my framed engineering degree and professional certifications that had been relegated to the basement after she'd redecorated and said they didn't match the aesthetic. I moved my clothes, my personal documents, my grandfather's watch, my mother's photo albums, anything that mattered. When I was done, I sat in the empty storage unit for a moment, surrounded by boxes labeled in my careful printing. This was my life. These were my things, and none of it was appreciated in that house. I returned the truck, drove back home. It was 7 in the evening. Patricia's car was there. So was Vanessa's. They were in the kitchen, cooking something together, laughing. I walked past them to the basement. My study was empty now, except for the desk and chair I'd leave behind. The walls looked oddly bare without my maps and blueprints. The shelves were empty without my reference books. I went back upstairs. They were plating pasta. "Oh, Gerald, there you are," Patricia said. "We made carbonara. There's probably enough if you want some." "No, thank you," I said. "I ate earlier." "Suit yourself," Vanessa said, twirling pasta on her fork. "More for us." I went to our bedroom. Patricia's bedroom, really. I'd never felt fully settled in it. My clothes had one small closet while hers sprawled into two. My bedside table had a lamp and a water glass. Hers had her phone charger, her book club books, her essential oils diffuser, her jewelry box. I packed my remaining toiletries, the few items of clothing I'd kept here, my passport and important documents from the safe, which only I had the combination to anyway. When I came back downstairs with a small suitcase, they were watching a reality show in the living room. "Going somewhere?" Patricia asked, barely glancing away from the screen. "Yes," I said simply. "Where?" "Out." "For how long?" "Indefinitely." That got her attention. She picked up the remote and muted the TV. "What do you mean, indefinitely?" "I mean I'm leaving. Tonight. Permanently." Vanessa laughed. I actually laughed. "What? Why?" "Because you've all made it abundantly clear that I contribute nothing here. So I'm removing my nothing from the equation." Patricia stood up. "Gerald, don't be dramatic. We had one conversation about household contributions and now you're throwing a tantrum?" "I'm not throwing anything," I said. "I'm making a logical choice based on the information provided. You said I don't contribute. So I won't. Not anymore." "This is ridiculous," Patricia said, her voice rising. "You can't just leave because your feelings got hurt." "I'm 63 years old," I said calmly. "I spent 38 years building things that matter. Bridges, roads, water treatment facilities. Things that serve people for generations. And I came home every day to a family that appreciated that work. My first wife understood what I did. My children from that marriage respected it." "Oh, here we go," Vanessa muttered, "comparing us to the perfect first family." "I'm not comparing anything," I said. "I'm stating facts. For the past 8 years, I've tried to be a good husband and stepfather. I've provided financially, emotionally, practically. I've asked for very little in return. Just basic respect, basic appreciation. And last night, at dinner, I was informed that I contribute nothing." "We didn't say nothing," Patricia protested. "We just said you could do more. You said I exist. You said I occupy space." Vanessa asked what I actually do. Brooke implied I'm dead weight. I picked up my suitcase. "So I'm removing the weight." "Where are you going to go?" Patricia demanded. "I have arrangements." "What arrangements?" "Mine. My business." She stared at me. Real concern was starting to creep into her face, replacing the irritation. "Gerald, this is insane. You can't just walk out." "I'm not walking out impulsively. I've given this careful thought. I've made arrangements. I've planned appropriately. Exactly the way an engineer would." "What about the bills?" Vanessa said suddenly. "Who's going to cover your share?" "My share," I repeated. "That's interesting. What exactly is my share, Vanessa?" She blinked. "I don't know. Your part. Like, you pay for some things." "Name them." "The utilities? You claimed you handled those." "Well, I pay the bill, but you put money in for it." "How much?" She looked at her mother. Patricia had gone pale. "You don't actually know, do you?" I said. "None of you know what I contribute because you've never paid attention. You just assumed the money would always be there. That I would always be there. Quiet, steady, boring Gerald who makes pot roast and watches documentaries and doesn't complain." "Gerald," Patricia said, her voice changing, becoming softer. "Let's talk about this. Sit down. Let's have a real conversation." We had a real conversation. Last night at dinner. That was very real. I didn't mean it the way it came out. "Then how did you mean it?" She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at Vanessa, who suddenly found the floor very interesting. "That's what I thought," I said. You meant exactly what you said. You just didn't expect consequences. I walked to the door. Patricia followed me. Wait. Just wait. Let's fix this. Tell me what you want me to do. I don't want you to do anything, I said. I want you to continue exactly as you are. You'll just do it without my nothing. Don't be like this. Please. I turned to look at her. Really look at her. She was 52. Still beautiful. Still the woman I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago at a charity fundraiser. She'd been overwhelmed, newly divorced, struggling with 2 young adult daughters. I'd been her stability, her safe harbor, her solution. When had I stopped being her partner and become her convenience? Patricia, I said quietly, what's my favorite color? She blinked. What? My favorite color? What is it? Blue? Is it blue? It's green. Forest green. I've told you that at least a dozen times. You've never remembered. I adjusted my grip on the suitcase. What did I do before I retired? You were an engineer. What kind? Does it matter? Civil engineer. I specialized in bridge construction and water infrastructure. I worked on the Deerfoot Trail expansion, the renovation of the Center Street Bridge, the water treatment facility in Airdrie. I'm quite proud of those projects. Okay, Gerald, I know this. What year did we get married? 2018. 2017, August 12th. She looked stricken. I just mixed up. What's my son's name? From my first marriage? Silence. It's Christopher. He's 36. He's a veterinarian in Vancouver. You met him twice. You don't remember his name because you've never asked about him. Never wanted to hear stories about him. Because he's not relevant to you. That's not fair, she whispered. None of this is about fair, I said. It's about respect. About seeing the person you're with as an entire human being, not just the functions they perform for you. And you don't see me, Patricia. You never really have. I opened the door. The mortgage payment is due next week, she said suddenly. You always transfer money for that. You should check your bank account, I said. Actually, you should check all of your accounts. You'll find some changes. Her face went from pale to white. What did you do? I removed myself from our joint accounts. I stopped all automatic transfers. Everything that was mine is now separate. Everything that was yours remains yours. Seems fair, doesn't it? Since you already handle everything anyway. You can't do that. I absolutely can. It's my money from my pension, my investments, my savings. You have no legal claim to any of it. We never merged finances legally. It was always voluntary on my part. But the mortgage is in your name, on the house that you owned before we married, that I was never added to the deed for, even though you promised we'd do that eventually. Remember? You said it was complicated with the girl's inheritance. So it's your house, your mortgage, your responsibility. Vanessa came to stand behind her mother. You can't just screw us over like this. I'm not screwing anyone over. I'm simply stopping my voluntary contributions. Contributions that apparently amount to nothing anyway. We didn't mean it literally, Vanessa shouted. Then what did you mean? Please, I'd love to know. Explain to me the non-literal interpretation of what do you actually do around here? She had no answer. The utilities will be due soon too, I said. The internet and cable bundle, the insurance premiums, the cell phone plan for all 3 lines. You'll want to budget for those. Oh, and the property tax installment is next month. That's usually about $4,000. Patricia's hands were shaking. You're punishing us. I'm respecting your assessment. You said I contribute nothing. So now I contribute nothing. That should make everyone happy. Where are you staying? She asked desperately. I have a lease starting tomorrow on a 1-bedroom apartment downtown. It's quite nice. 12th floor. View of the river. Walking distance to restaurants and the library. Very peaceful. You already found a place? I found it 2 days ago. Signed the lease yesterday. You've been planning this, she said, her voice breaking. Since the dinner. You've been planning to abandon us. I've been planning to respect your wishes, I corrected. You told me what you thought of me. I believed you, and I acted accordingly. I stepped out onto the porch. It was October, cool but not cold. Good weather for a new beginning. Gerald, please, Patricia said, tears starting now. Don't do this. We can fix this. I'm sorry. We're all sorry. Right, Vanessa? Vanessa nodded quickly, her own eyes wet. We didn't mean it. We were just being bitchy. It was wrong. I appreciate the apology, I said. Truly. But apologies don't fix patterns. This wasn't one dinner. This has been 8 years of small cuts. 8 years of being tolerated instead of treasured. 8 years of being useful instead of loved. That's not true, Patricia sobbed. I love you. You love what I provide. There's a difference. I walked to my car, loaded the suitcase in the back. They stood on the porch, watching. The house looked beautiful in the evening light. I'd repainted the exterior 3 years ago, fixed the loose boards on the deck, replaced the front door after the old one warped. I'd built that deck from scratch one summer. Patricia had friends over every weekend, loved showing it off. Never once mentioned that I'd built it. I got in the car, started the engine. Patricia ran down the steps, came to my window. I rolled it down. What about us? She asked. What are we supposed to do? Whatever you were planning to do if I actually contributed nothing, I said. Figure it out. You're all capable adults. We need you. No, you need my money. It's not the same thing. I'll change. I promise. I'll be better. I looked at her tear-streaked face. Part of me wanted to believe her. The part that had loved her for 8 years. The part that had tried so hard to make this blended family work. But I'd learned something in my decades as an engineer. When a structure develops cracks, you can patch them, reinforce them, maintain them. But if the foundation was never solid to begin with, eventually the whole thing comes down. You can't build something lasting on unstable ground. I hope you do change, I said honestly. I hope you learn to value people for who they are, not what they provide. I hope you teach your daughters that respect is fundamental, not optional. But you're going to learn those lessons without me. Please, she whispered. Goodbye, Patricia. I rolled up the window, put the car in reverse, backed out of the driveway while she stood there crying. Vanessa had come down now too, her arm around her mother. They looked shocked, devastated, like the world had tilted on its axis. Good. Maybe shock would lead to reflection. Maybe devastation would lead to growth. Or maybe it wouldn't. Either way, it was no longer my problem. I drove downtown to my new apartment. The building was modern, secure, well-maintained. The kind of place I'd dreamed about during the years I'd spent managing everyone else's home but never quite feeling at home myself. The apartment was empty, except for the bed and basics that had been delivered that afternoon. I'd start fresh, buy new furniture, only what I wanted, only what brought me joy. I stood at the window, looking out at the city I'd helped build. The lights were coming on across Calgary, millions of people living their lives. And somewhere in this city was a version of my life that didn't require me to diminish myself to fit. My phone started ringing around 9 o'clock. Patricia. I declined the call. She called again. Declined. Text messages started coming through. Please call me. We need to talk. I'm so sorry. The bank sent a letter. What did you do? How am I supposed to pay the mortgage? You can't just walk away from 8 years. I turned off my phone. In the morning, I called my son, Christopher, the veterinarian, the son that Patricia couldn't remember. Dad, it's early. Everything okay? Everything's fine. Actually, everything's better than fine. I left Patricia. There was a long silence. Then, thank God, I laughed, surprised. You didn't like her? Dad, none of us liked her. She was using you. We could all see it. But you seemed happy, so we bit our tongues. I wasn't happy. I was convenient. What finally happened? I told him about the dinner, about the comments, about the decision and the follow-through. That's my dad, Christopher said, and I could hear the pride in his voice. Engineer to the core, identify the problem, develop a solution, execute flawlessly. Your mother would have been proud. Mom would have left Patricia years ago, he said, but she also would have been proud that you finally stood up for yourself. When are you coming to Vancouver? I want you to meet Emily properly. And your grandson. I have a grandson? 6 months old. I was going to tell you at Christmas, but honestly, I wasn't sure Patricia would let you come. She always made holidays complicated. I closed my eyes. 6 months. I had a grandson I'd never met because I'd been so focused on trying to make a family work with people who didn't value me that I'd neglected the family who did. I'll book a flight this week, I said. I'm retired. I have nothing but time now. And Dad, I'm really glad you left. You deserve better. You always did. After we hung up, I sat with that. My son's words, his support, his relief. I thought I was doing the right thing, sticking with the marriage, working through the problems, being patient with the stepdaughters. But patience isn't virtue when you're accepting disrespect. Loyalty isn't love when it's not reciprocated. The text messages continued throughout the day. Patricia, Vanessa, even Brooke, who apparently had been informed. My mom is devastated. How could you do this to us? We need to talk about finances. You can't just disappear. The insurance premium bounced. We're going to lose coverage. I had to cancel my trip to Cabo. That last one from Vanessa. I almost laughed, almost replied, decided against it. I spent the day setting up my apartment, hung my engineering degree with pride, placed my grandfather's watch on a shelf where I could see it, arranged my books exactly how I wanted them, made the space mine. Around 6 in the evening, there was a knock on my door. I checked the peephole. Patricia, I didn't open it. She knocked again. Gerald, I know you're in there. Your car is in the garage. Silence. Please. I just want to talk. We've talked enough. I called through the door. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair pulled back, dressed in yoga pants and an oversized sweater. Not the polished woman who'd called me useless 3 days ago. How did you find me? I asked. I called all the apartment buildings downtown. You'd mentioned the Riverview. That's a lot of effort, because I care about you. You care about what I provided. Past tense. That's not fair. I do care about you. I love you. Patricia, answer me honestly. Did you love me, or did you love that I solved your problems? She wrapped her arms around herself. Both. Can it be both? Not in the proportion it was. I made a mistake. We made mistakes. People mess up, Gerald. You know that. People mess up once and apologize. They don't spend 8 years in a pattern of disrespect and then act shocked when there are consequences. What do you want from me? She asked, her voice breaking. Tell me what to do to fix this. I don't want anything from you. That's the point. I'm done wanting things I'll never receive. Respect, appreciation, equal partnership. I chased those things for 8 years. I'm tired. So that's it? 8 years and you're just done? Yes. She stared at me. I never thought you had it in you. To leave? To be this cold. I'm not being cold. I'm being clear. There's a difference. The mortgage, Gerald. I can't afford the mortgage without your contribution. I'll lose the house. Then sell it, downsize, find a roommate. You're a capable woman. You'll figure it out. The girls are counting on inheriting that house. The girls are adults with jobs in their own places. They'll survive disappointment. I need you to help me. No, you don't. You want me to help you. Again, there's a difference. She started crying again. Real tears. Messy tears. I can't believe you're doing this. After everything. After everything I did, you mean? After I supported your household financially? After I raised your daughters? After I put my own needs last for 8 years? Yes, after everything I did, I'm choosing myself. Finally, you're being selfish. Yes, for the first time in 8 years, I'm being selfish. It feels overdue. What about your vows? For better or worse? What about respect? What about honor? Those are vows too. You broke them first. She wiped her eyes, straightened up. The tears stopped like a faucet shutting off. Fine. You want to be like this? I'll get a lawyer. For what? We kept finances separate. I'm not on the house deed. There's no joint property to divide. We signed a cohabitation agreement when we moved in together that specified exactly that. You planned this from the beginning, she said, her voice hard now. All those years, you were protecting yourself. No. I was being financially prudent at the advice of my lawyer after my first wife died. I had assets to protect for my son's inheritance. You agreed it was sensible at the time, because I thought we'd merge things eventually. You had 8 years to add me to the house deed. You never did. Don't pretend this was my failing. She looked at me with something new in her eyes. Not sadness, not love, calculation. I could make things difficult for you, she said quietly. You could try. But I've documented everything. Every contribution, every payment, every conversation. I learned from years of engineering contracts to keep meticulous records. I met her eyes steadily. And I have excellent lawyers. Her face crumpled again, but differently this time. Not manipulation. Actual defeat. I really have lost you, she whispered. You never really had me. You had a version of me that was convenient for you, the real me, the one who builds bridges and watches documentaries about infrastructure and loves his son and grandson in Vancouver. That person was never really welcome in your home. That's not true. Patricia, you can't name my favorite color. You forgot our anniversary. You don't know what projects I'm most proud of. You've never asked about my mother, who died when I was 12. You don't know that I have a chronic shoulder injury from a construction accident in my 30s. You don't know that I wake up thinking about my late wife sometimes and feeling guilty about it. You don't know me. You know the Gerald who was useful to you. She had no answer to that. Go home, I said, not unkindly. Figure out your finances. Teach your daughters about resilience. Learn from this. But do it without me. I closed the door, locked it, leaned against it, heard her crying on the other side for a long minute, then heard her footsteps walking away. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel cruel. I felt lighter, like I'd been carrying weight I didn't realize was crushing me until I set it down. In the weeks that followed, life reorganized itself around my actual priorities. I flew to Vancouver and met my grandson, Henry, 6 months old, with Christopher's eyes and his mother Emily's smile. I held him and felt something unlock in my chest. This was family. This was love without transaction. I joined a community center in Calgary that offered workshops. I started teaching a basic home maintenance course for seniors. Showed them how to fix leaky faucets, patch drywall, understand their home's electrical system. They appreciated what I knew, asked questions, thanked me. I reconnected with old colleagues from my engineering days. We met for lunch, talked about the projects we'd worked on, the industry changes, the new technologies. They remembered the bridges we'd built together. They valued my experience. I started dating a woman named Helen who I met at the library. She was 61, a retired teacher, widowed for 5 years. She asked about my work on our first coffee, really asked, wanted to know about the Center Street Bridge restoration, about the challenges of working with historical structures, about the satisfaction of preserving something for future generations. I drive over that bridge every week, she said. I never thought about the people who make sure it's safe. That's remarkable work, Gerald. I almost cried into my coffee. Patricia called a few times in those first months. The calls became less frequent, eventually stopped. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd sold the house, moved into a townhouse. That Vanessa had to get a second job. That Brooke had moved back home to save money. I felt sympathy but not guilt. They were learning lessons that everyone learns eventually. That actions have consequences. That you can't build a life on other people's unappreciated labor. That respect isn't optional in relationships. 6 months after I left, I received a letter, handwritten, Patricia's handwriting. Dear Gerald, I'm not writing to ask you to come back. I'm writing to say, I'm sorry, really sorry, not the kind of sorry I said when I thought it would change your mind. You were right about everything. I didn't see you. I saw what you did for me, what you fixed, what you paid for. But I didn't see you. The girls and I have been going to therapy. Well, Vanessa and I are. Brooke's still resistant. We're learning about patterns, about how we treat people, about gratitude. It's hard work, harder than I expected. I tell the therapist about you sometimes, about how steady you were, how patient, how you never raised your voice even when we were awful. She says I took advantage of your good nature. She's right. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. I'm not asking you to. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. What I lost, what I threw away, what I failed to treasure when I had it. I hope you're happy, Gerald. I hope you're building things that matter and spending time with people who appreciate you. You deserve that. You always did. With regret and respect, Patricia. I read the letter twice, felt something settle in my chest. Not forgiveness, exactly. Not reconciliation, but a sense of completion, of a story ending the way it needed to. I wrote back, briefly, Patricia, thank you for your letter. I appreciate your honesty. I hope therapy helps. Not for my sake, but for yours and your daughters. Everyone deserves to learn how to treat people well. I am happy. Happier than I've been in years. I'm building a life that reflects my values. I'm with people who see me, not just what I can do for them. I wish you well, truly. Gerald. I sealed the letter, mailed it, let it go. At 63, I'm learning that it's never too late to choose yourself. It's never too late to walk away from situations that diminish you. It's never too late to build something new on solid ground. I spent 38 years building infrastructure that served communities, bridges that connected places, systems that provided clean water, roads that helped people reach where they needed to go. Now I'm building something more personal, a life that serves me, connections that are reciprocal, a foundation that's stable because it's based on mutual respect. Sometimes people ask me if I regret leaving, if I wish I'd tried harder to make it work. I tell them about the Center Street Bridge, how it was built in 1916, how it served Calgary for over a century, how it's still standing because it was built on solid foundation and maintained with care. Then I tell them about structures built on poor foundation, how they crack and shift, how you can patch them, reinforce them, pour money and effort into them. But if the foundation isn't solid, they'll eventually fail. And when they do, the collapse can be catastrophic. You have to know when to walk away from structures that can't be saved, when to preserve your resources for building something that will last. I walked away, I preserved myself, and now I'm building something that will last the rest of my life. That's not regret, that's wisdom. And if there's a lesson in my story, it's this: being taken for granted is being disrespected, and you should never accept that. Not from family, not from anyone. Know your worth. Document your contributions. And when people tell you you're worth nothing, believe them enough to leave. They'll learn your value when they have to replace everything you did. And you'll learn your own value when you're finally free to just be yourself.